This week, something that's really been top of mind for me is like, if I really believed in myself, what would I do? Tell me if this resonates for you guys. Like, if you truly genuinely believed in yourself and your vision, your mission, and your abilities to deliver on it, like what would you do then? And I'll tell you the story of this for me. So last week I was at two different mastermind groups back to back. One is called War Room, and the other is called Boardroom. I don't know what it is about these masterminds and rooms. And Sammy on my team, our sales guy, he encouraged me to go approach some of the people at those groups to hear if they wanted to be a part of my high-end mastermind that I'm creating. So I'm creating a high-end mastermind that I call Calvin's Inner Circle, which is focused on the inner growth side of entrepreneurship, like creating the experiences, the situations that are going to unlock some of those deep unconscious issues, if you will, that will really help propel you to the next level in your business, in your life, whatever. And for me, that's always been where the big benefits have been. It has been in making those shifts, those unlocks. That's what creates the big leaps forward. And so I was in these groups, and there were some people there that I thought would be really, really good fit for that mastermind. And it's a $45,000 a year program. So these are not, right? It's a substantial investment to join this program. And so I reached out to some of these people. Like, my inclination was to be like, oh, why do they want to buy from me? Because why would they want to join my mastermind? Because they're so much more successful than I am. But then I was like, all right, let me ask them. And it turned out that it was like the easiest thing. It's kind of the easiest sale I've ever made. Like, there were like the people that I most wanted to join. I just had the conversation with them. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this mastermind and I'd love to have you in it. And here's what it's about. And they're like, dude, I'm in. Like, it was literally that easy. It just made me think, holy shit, like, if I truly believed in my gifts and in my ability to execute on what I really, really want to do, like, what would I do? How would I do it? How would I approach it? What else would I do? From there, then thinking like, what are the things that I can do that only I need to be doing? And what are all the things that someone else needs to do? And right now, there's a lot of things in my company where I really should have an assistant and a house manager and, some other people on the team that I don't currently have. And it just made me really think like, dude, if I actually got those things off my plate and I could go out to these events and meet more people and bring into, a $45,000 a year program, like, that easily that very, very quickly pays for a couple assistants or other team members. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about lately.
That's kind of dope, man.
Yeah, thanks.
That's kind of dope. Like, are you saying that like because of your enhanced belief and your evolving belief that it's causing you to refigure how your team is structured and who you need and the support you need so you can focus on other stuff?
Yeah, it's like even if I don't have the budget right now, right, actually making that investment in hiring the right assistant for me and I think that's the big unlock right now, having an executive assistant and then another person who is more of a personal assistant, house manager kind of person. Like, that would just free up so much time and energy for me that I would like, do I believe in myself enough to know that if I hire those people, even though I don't have the budget right now, that I would be able to make that back very easily because I believe in my ability to create this program.
That's rather dope. So let me ask you this question. This is kind of like not related, but it's kind of related. How much belief do you need to have in order to make that next step in hiring more people? Because if you got a new business or if it's making $5,000, $10,000, but to bring on a full-time person could drastically eat up those profits. Like, what's the mindset in that? Like, how do you, gear yourself for that?
Yeah, I think that's where I think the big thing that happened for me too was like realizing how easy it was, right? Sometimes selling something like Simplero starts at like $700 a year, which is a very different price point from 45,000. And then like going out there and just offering this and realizing, oh my God, this is like, it's so much easier for me to sell one of those than to sell, a Simplero. Like that sales conversation is just so much easier. And he was like, what if I allowed this to be easy? Like, what if I really, truly, genuinely believed that I'm supported by life, by the universe, and that it's okay that things are easy? Like, what would life be like then? I've been living in that question, like what if it were okay that it was like really easy? And what if I truly believe that I'm being supported? What if I can succeed with all the things that I want to do? Like, what if I believed in myself and had my own back? Those are kind of the questions that I've been living with.
I'd like to add something.
Yeah, sure.
Essentially, what you're describing is the idea of effortless living. And in order to like fulfill that and to really accomplish that, what you have to do is you have to transcend all of the fears or limiting beliefs that are holding you back from acknowledging that as an actuality. Like, it's totally possible that you could wake up and stumble out of bed and stroll down the street and randomly encounter someone who happens to be the perfect person for wherever you are in life and whatever your next step in business is. Logically, it's easy to assume that that's not likely to happen. But if you're willing to make the leap that we don't live in a completely rational universe, but rather we live in this wonderful universe where we are supported and our innate desires are like wanting to be fulfilled, then you can like find yourself in this space where you're just flowing through life. But I think for a lot of us, we were raised in an education system and environment that taught us that everything has to be rational and hard work is like the paramount for success. And it's in those like beliefs that we get caught because we think, oh, if we're not working 8 hours every day, how can we create this perfect business or this perfect life? And if we're not struggling, then we're not validating this idea that hard work is necessary. But I think if you,
no, that's right. That's right, man. Yeah.
I think if you continuously set the intention, and then what that will do is it will force you to acknowledge the beliefs that you still are carrying. And then one by one, you just address and allow those beliefs to fade away. Then eventually you find yourself in this utopic state where you're able to live in that kind of easy mode. Not saying I've done it myself, but that's what I think is the path to getting there.
Yeah, that is super cool. Thank you for that, Fletcher. We got Ida talking about building a list. Let's talk about that.
Hi, everybody. I started a Facebook campaign like a very long time ago. And it was running for 8 months, and I only got 116 people on my list. And then the local newspapers, they complain, oh, Facebook, all these international companies are stealing our announcements and stuff like that. So, okay, I try locally. The problem was that nobody listed with the local newspaper. It was only on Facebook people signed up. But I obviously have not found the magic trick when it comes to marketing and announcements. So is there anything Simplero can help me with building a list? It's hard, man. So I don't get further, in building my course because list and marketing is it sucks, basically.
Got it. Yeah, I hear you. So like I would start by changing my language and thinking about it. If it were me, I would start by saying, like, what if it were easy? If building a list was actually easy, like, where is the approach it with a mindset of this is easy. I know it's easy for some people. How are they thinking about it? How are they behaving so that it's easy for them? Right. And so look for that easy way. If you start by looking at it with like, oh, this is difficult and it sucks, then that's going to be your experience. So change that mindset. Now let's get practical about it. So how can you build a list easily? Well, you got to find where people are, right? So if those people that you're trying to reach are on Facebook, well, then Facebook is an option. If they're not on Facebook, then it's not an option. If they're reading the local paper, then that could be an option. If they're not, then it's not going to be an option. There are lots and lots of ways that you can generate you can build your list and you can generate leads. For me, one of my favorite ways is by using partners, affiliate partners, JV partners, referral partners. So find other people who have your people and figure out how you get them to tell their people about you. That approach doesn't cost you any money until you actually get, a subscriber or make a sale. And it allows you to go out and build relationships, which is, to me, is fun. Yeah, that's my favorite way. You have to go where they are, and then you have to give them something compelling that they actually want, right? So you have to have, even to get an email requires an offer, right? You're saying, hey, give me your email address and I'll give you that. I'll solve this problem for you. And you have to put something that's compelling and credible in front of them. And if you have that, then, and you're clear on who you're trying to reach, it's going to be relatively easy to find some people who have those and build those relationships.
Thank you. Yes, I tried.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it. And the other thing I wanted to add there is, like, we want to be, in this type of business, we want to be agile. We want to, you have to move fast in order to get something done, because you got to be able to try stuff. And if it doesn't work out, you got to try something else. You just have to figure out how to move quick. All right. We got a question, you said?
Yeah. Kara, you ready to go?
Thank you. This has all been really insightful. One thing that I'm in the midst of brainstorming right now is that I have a podcast that I've had for 4 years. And I understand, from a pyramid perspective, that's kind of that, bottom, free offer where I'm going to hit the most people. But what I'm finding from a website perspective is that I have everything that's my ecosystem is Simplero. But when I Google my podcast, it takes me to my podcast host embedded mini website. And I would think this is a super easy thing to solve, but I am going around and around because there's value in that, because you can play every episode. And if I do it on a different website, then I have to manually embed each new episode. And it's tricky for me. How do I marry these two ecosystems so that people can search for the podcast? If they don't know me, but they've come across the podcast and they want to look into it more, how do I make that seamless so that they're in my ecosystem, my Simplero ecosystem, and they can find more of what is my meditation course and my membership and so on. Does that make sense?
Is the problem that they both show up, or only one of them is showing up?
If you search for the meditation conversation, which is the podcast, it just takes you to my non-Simplero site, and then all of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and specific episodes. It doesn't even bring up my website. Right.
And I mean, this is just a pure SEO thing, right? So which sites rank for which phrases. So what I would do is leave that the way it is. Make sure that in your description of the podcast that you have info about where they can find you, so that if they click on the Apple Podcast link, and they go to that app, that they can see that information there. On that mini site that you mentioned, it sounds like you can actually control a little bit more what's there, possibly. If you can make it an actual link. You can make sure, again, that here's the podcast, link back to your site. That's how I would think about it. What I think is pretty normal these days, you Google people, and then you find their podcast and their Substack and their website. You find all these different properties, their Facebook page or their LinkedIn page. I think that's kind of just how that works these days, the way I think about it.
So I don't need to worry so much about integrating the podcast, domain, for example, into my Simplero ecosystem.
No, I wouldn't worry too much about it, as long as when they search for those phrases, they find you, and that leads them over to where you want them. Because if they're searching for the podcast, let them listen to the podcast. But then, as they do that, they build more affinity with you, and now they're going to want to seek you out. And you just drip stuff in your podcast that mentions, oftentimes, if you can just if you're just mentioning that, oh, by the way, I have this program that makes a certain people want to seek you out, and find out more about that program. You don't need to sell it, just mention it. And And you can mention, like, if you go to my website, there's this lead magnet that you can download. You don't call it a lead magnet, right? Like, I have a report that helps you yada yada, right? Then you can find that on my website, and then people go there. So I think that's totally cool.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. All right. What else has been going on, Bryson?
We were talking about believing in yourself,
Yeah.
the power of that. Matter of fact, we got a question, Elizabeth Ungar. How about the fear of hiring people, that it will cost more than I'll make, and finding the right people to help you? It's always difficult to know what to do herself and what to get someone else to do when it comes to marketing, when she's selling herself.
Yeah, it's just, I kind of get stuck where I'm like, oh, I know that I will progress a lot more if I hire people, and I do that once in a while, but it always ends up being quite expensive here in Denmark, and I don't always reach the goal I want to reach, and then I go back and I say, well, might as well do it myself. So I would love to hear some tricks. Yeah, I'd love to hear some tricks how to overcome that, and maybe some
so two things.
Practical tricks.
First is that I would like make the commitment to make hiring people work for you, right? Not making it work for you is just not an option, because you're always going to be like, you're always going to be limited. You're always going to be stuck doing $10 tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
As one of my friends says, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant.
Exactly.
And you don't want to be that, right? So you have to make it work. Second thing I would do is, what is it in you that keeps attracting people who are not a fit for what you need, right? Is it unworthiness? Is it feeling insecure? Is it like, what's the psychological thing that has you keep finding people that are not a fit and then don't deliver? And then it comes down to just having a process for finding people. Like, instead of thinking I need to find a person who can do it, is I need to have a system that will deliver the person who can do this job. Does that make sense?
The last part, not so much. The system, could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So what's the person that you would hire?
Someone to set up my online course and to do some social media marketing.
Okay. Set up online course, do social media and marketing. Okay. Fairly broad, and maybe it's not one person. I mean,
that was two different.
Set up your online course is very easy. You go to, like, there's a bunch of Simplero certified experts that you can go to.
I did that.
So that's you did that.
Yes, I did that. It didn't work out. I just spent a lot of money and I sold 10. So I didn't even earn the amount that I spent.
Got it. Okay. Is it enabling you to make more money, right? So what is it that needs to happen on that end so that it actually pays for it, so that it's easy? So maybe that's where the thing lies. But just to answer the other piece is the way that I think of it is like, for me, one of the things I need to do is hire engineers and hire marketing people. And so I'm like, okay, what is a process for hiring engineers? I need to put an ad in the place where engineers go look for jobs. And I need an ad that stands out and speaks to my exact avatar, right? Hiring is just a marketing function, basically. Like, it's you're doing marketing to potential candidates instead of to potential customers. So I need a place to post the advertisement. I need to write the copy that's going to attract the right kind of person. I need to have a vetting process that's easy for me to do and that filters out people who are not good candidates. And then I need to have a good hiring and finally onboarding process for them. So that's the system. And so instead of thinking like, I just need one engineer, I just need one marketer, I just need one person, think about, how do I design a system that can deliver good marketers, social media people, course people, so that if it doesn't work out one time, you now have a system that you can improve on and make it better for the next hire. So your system can be very simple, but still think about it as creating a system so that if the first person doesn't work out, you have the system in place that lets you find the next or the next or the next, because you're committed to making hiring people work for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it takes it away from my personal fears of not making it work, because it's a system. So that makes sense.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that we don't look inside about like, what is it in me that's creating the situation, but absolutely, like, don't make it personal. It's a system and we can tweak the system for sure. Yes, exactly. And then make sure that there is like, that you have the money-making thing on the other side. And that's something that like I feel like we as business owners need to take responsibility for, right? We can't just hire someone like, okay, here's the course, like now you figure out how to sell it, because the figuring out how to sell it is a completely integral piece of creating the course. You can't outsource it. Once you figure out the system, now you can delegate those pieces of you know, the mechanics of it, but making sure that you have a high priced offer that will deliver enough revenue that it makes sense for you to hire the people to do the lower level tasks.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Carl.
Cool. Appreciate it. My pleasure.
What's your thoughts on systems? Like, how, is there a moment where it's too soon to start systematizing things, or is it never too soon to systematize stuff?
Yeah, I like to be creative in the beginning and just experiment with stuff and not have too many systems and processes. But in my mind, there's always a system, even if it's not written down. There is a system and a process for how to achieve it. And that's the one that I'm testing out in the beginning. So I'm like, okay, what if we did this? All right, let me try it, test it out, see how it works. Okay, let's improve it in this way. So I think the systems comes in very early, like in the beginning, along with it's part of the creative process. And then later on, you can start to codify it and write standard operating procedures and get people to train people on them and get them to follow them, et cetera.
Excellent.
Having the courage to hire before you need to and before you feel like you have the money, if you can see a path to making that money, right? If you could free up 10, 20 hours of your time per week, what could you do with that time to bring in money, right? Could you work on your copy? Could you work on your funnel? Could you work on your being more clear in your avatar? Could you create a higher priced offer that you could sell to the same people that you already have? Could you build a system that automates some of the process of bringing in customers and you know, selling, et cetera? So like, what would be the income potential if you were to have an extra 10 or 20 hours a week? What could you do with that time if you really put your head in the game of doing that?
That's powerful. Why do you think we focus on mostly the negative part of hiring people versus the extra 10 to 20 hours or the extra revenue that we produce? Why do our minds mostly shift towards, you know, the negative? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think we look at the cost and we're like, we get nervous about it, right? Like, wait, where's the money going to come from? And I get that too, of like, well, if you don't know what you're doing yet and you haven't found the product market fit, as they call it, right? You haven't found that fit with where you know that what you're offering has value and you know what you need to do to sell it, then it's probably not the right time to go hire those people. You want to make sure that there is a path to making that money back. You don't want to be reckless about it. But if you are there and that's where the question for me, if I really genuinely trust it in myself and my ability to do what I want to do, like, how would I approach it? How would I do it? And I would hire a little more aggressively and do more stuff. And then just know that, okay, worst case, like this is what's going to happen. And then then I could do this and like think, I always think through the plan B, right? I always think through the downside in detail. Like I don't shy away from that. I don't go blind into stuff. It's like, all right, what's the worst that could happen? All right. And then what would I do then? And then like, if it got even worse, what would that look like? I go into it with very open eyes, but you have to be willing to take some chances and invest.
Excellent. We got Yvonne up.
Thanks for inviting me on. We've had a long and very successful relationship with Facebook. The work I do is with a very niche community, and basically the people that I engage with are nearly all parents, although some of them are professionals, nearly all parents of children who have a disability or an additional need, and where those children become so anxious that they become violent with very difficult, dangerous behaviour where other people might get hurt. So it's a very, very specialist area that I'm in. And one of the most successful things that we've done, although I'm talking here successful.
So what's your question, Yvonne? I'm not clear.
Yes, no, Beth's asked me to just talk a little bit about, was that right? Am I doing it right?
You had said, yeah, you had said in the channel that you had found that doing Facebook Lives was an effective strategy for you.
Yes.
So I was just curious about how that had turned into an effective strategy for you, or if you had something to talk to Calvin about there.
Yeah, well, particularly we have a very, very Facebook group, private group, and I'm in there all the time. Literally, if I just feel brave, I turn the camera on and I just natter, and people seem to love it. And they feel that I'm in their living room, sitting on their dining table or sitting on their sofa with them. And and the more you do it, the more people just sort of trust you. And we've really noticed how things have grown, and our list is just growing and growing and growing. We're nearly at 1,500 now, which is just incredible. But it's all based because CB, trust me. And I think that sometimes when we think about marketing, I'm quite sort of distant and remote. Basically, what's marketing all about? The way I look at it is connecting with people and reaching out to them and sort of talking to them. And quite easy. At least we found it easier. Does that help anyway?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's all it is, right? It's connecting with people and building relationships. Yeah, that's what it is. And figure out who you can help and serve and what you can do for you. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and if you come to business from a place of service, right? We're looking to serve people. We're looking for people whom we can serve. Then that changes it from like, I need people, I need money, I need things, to just like, hey, I'm here to serve. All right. Do we have anything else?
I do briefly want to just kind of mention about the shift that we had, the big one we had last week about Gus, when he made the mind shift change from watching being a part of the online Unfiltered Lives to he was charging $400 and he charged $4,800.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it was all because of a mind shift change and a mindset change that happened by listening to the show. And I thought that was an amazing win. I know we didn't talk about wins. We didn't start off with big wins, but I thought that was a huge win that we had this week, and just the power of shifting the mindset and how that could be a 10% or 100 times, return on results. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to.
That's amazing.
Shout that out.
Yeah, that's super good.
Hey, Calvin.
What's up, buddy? What's up?
Hey, great stuff. Actually, this might be a little related. I really appreciate this content, because it's just a reminder, like, oh yeah, have I been doing that? Have I really been utilizing these systems? So I might be, in a sense, answering my own question, but I feel like right now I'm kind of dealing with a situation where I'm getting help, right? So I'm getting some help through some VAs, and it's kind of, I'm realizing in this moment that it's probably because I'm not systematizing enough, that I'm not utilizing them as well as I could be. So what tends to happen, and maybe this will help just to share this with people, because people might have this same experience, where I'll get a VA, I've got a particular need, and then I find out, oh wow, wait a minute, I either didn't give them enough, I've like hired them for X amount of hours, and then I realize, oh wait a minute, this is only gonna take them an hour, and then I'm like catching up, and then I'm spending my time trying to find things for them, and that's when it feels like, well, duh, it would be faster to do it myself because I'm actually behind the 8 ball. So that happens sometimes, right? Where it's like, okay, step back, I need the system first. So I guess, the other side of it is the other problem can happen, right? Where I bring somebody on and it's like too much for them and they're not clear what to do. Mm-hmm. And so I think really the answer to this is creating that system first. But do you have any insights on, like, particularly with VAs? I mean, I've had a mix. I have some people who work for me, but there's lots of things where there's these little projects where, like, a VA, it could be ideal, right? Because, it's just, they can just follow the instructions. But do you have any kind of rules of thumb that you might use in terms of making it effective and aligning a system with the right team or VA or person?
I think so. Different people operate different ways, right? Some people need everything spelled out very clearly, and typically VAs land in that territory where you need to be very, very specific with how you want the work done, and that's a lot of work on you to do that. And so it only works if this is repeated work, and ideally it's the same person that stays for a long time. I will say if you're getting in a VA for a certain amount of time and then you're like, oh my God, like I only have this much work, that it sounds like a scarcity mindset thing coming in where you're like, oh no, now I need to use up all this time, even if it's not like the smartest thing to do. I'd just be like, okay, great. I have extra time. Let them just give it back to them and it's fine, right? Because it's still worth it for you to have an assistant, a VA do this work. And you're building up the muscle of doing it. Like you'll get into a place where you just have the systems and the processes in place and you don't even think about it. But if you're starting out, like it's okay that there's some slack. Everything's not going to be perfect in the beginning. Then like at a higher level, virtual assistant, executive assistant, maybe type of level, you have people who can take on more responsibility and be more of a partner with you. But it really depends on the level and the person.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I mean, generally I've hired people that are going to be like an executive level or somebody who I need sustainably, right? Who I need to be able to rely, even though we don't know, right? People can leave at any time. We don't know for sure. But bring people on, hire them, as opposed to, when I think of hire, it means I'm making them an employee, giving them a W-2, whatever we need to do, right? Legally, that they're actually my employee versus a VA when I think of VA, I'm thinking of them as an independent contractor. So I like to think of
the way I think of it is more the type of work involved versus the employment terms. Like it's very different. Like a runner or an assistant or an executive assistant or a chief of staff or a director of operations. Like these are very different levels of people, and I think that's more meaningful than like the particular employment terms.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense. It's a good way to just kind of reframe it and not think of it that way. Well, cool. That's helpful. Appreciate it.
All right.
Good content.
Appreciate it, man. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is fun. Let's do this again next week. How about that? It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. It's been really fun.